the proof that we've done our job is I'd love to be able to walk into a room back home and everyone's just speaking Anaiwan. Yeah. There's not a drop of English at all. And that's just a dream, I guess, for every nation that, you know, we can go wherever and it's understood.
First off, just like to start this discussion by doing an acknowledgement of country and pay my respects to, or pay our respects to, elders past, present, and acknowledge that we are on Gadigal land. I'd like to extend that acknowledgement to all my brothers and sisters and aunties country here today. My name's Cody Walker. I'm a proud Bundjalung and Yuin man. Bundjalung being my father's country on the north coast of New South Wales, and Yuin being my mother's country down the south coast of New South Wales. This discussion is in light of Languages Week. So first off, we'd just like to go around the table and introduce everyone. Maybe start off with brother here.
Nagabi, Nagang David. Hi, how are you all? My name is David. I belong to Botany Bay in coastal Sydney. I spoke Dharawal. Dharawal is the language that I speak of my grandmother's family, where I was born and raised in La Perouse. So throughout the area where we are today, we consider as our country for our old people, but I also got family ties through my dad's family down to the Griffith, which is also Wiradjuri as well. So, yeah.
Dhanggati, Yaka Susan, Yaka Anaiwan. I'm from the New England Northern Tablelands of New South Wales. I represent my mother's side, which is Anaiwan, and my father's, which is Gumbaynggirr. I also have ties to Dhanggati and Birrapai.
Thank you, Aunt.
Yamagayarnai Jackie. I'm currently living in Lightning Ridge, and I've been doing Yuwaalaraay, Gumbaynggirr and Yuwaalaraay languages through Wonnaruah. And I'm from Wonnaruah originally, Yimba, also Nyampa, and I lived in Lightning Ridge for 48 years, so I belong there, and that's where I feel my ties are.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Gina gango jawan, gango di pijar Dylan nga Gumbaynggirr gundi nga kumbur meru gundi, gango di barman Jacqueline umaga, Gumbaynggirr, Dhanggati, Yuin and Birrapai. So just said hello everyone. My name is Dylan, and I have many countries, Gumbaynggirr country and Dhanggati country, which are neighbours with each other in the mid-north, round about the mid-north coast area of New South Wales, and then Birrapai is right there next to them as well, and then Yuin country down the south coast ways and Wonnaruah and all that down there. I'm not necessarily a language practitioner. I'm a researcher that works alongside Gumbaynggirr language practitioners on my country, and I'm very fortunate to be here and to share this space with you all today.
Hi, Jacqueline Allen, Kai, Wonnaruah, Jackie Allen. My bloodlines go back to my grandmother of Wonnaruah and Gumbaynggirr and my grandfather of Anaiwan and Dhanggati. I'm born and bred in Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, so I work with the Awakening the Awabakal language, a language that has no living speakers, so it's a hard job, and that's why I've been here for so long.
Thank you very much. The theme for this year's Aboriginal Languages Week is Let Our Voices Fly. The question I'd pose to everyone is, what does Aboriginal language mean to you? And anyone can, jump in and have a discussion if you feel safe.
For me, language is all about belonging. I feel that even though I can't speak fluent Anaiwan and it's not a living language in that regard, it's just been woken up. But speaking in English has a different connection to saying hello as opposed to like me saying Dhanggati. There's an instant connection with my mob, with my people. So to me, language gives that real strong sense of belonging.
Nice, thank you.
To me, it's about connecting back to what my ancestors had that we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And also just, once you start speaking language, the environment and country look completely different because you start listening to country again. So language is just about finding my place, my connection to my ancestors for me.
Yeah, I find that, you know, you can't have language and culture separated. They both belong to one another. And, you know, if you've got one without the other, well, you don't feel right. It's like you need both of them to, you know, be able to live as an Aboriginal person and know about language, I feel.
100%.
Yeah, I feel it's like language is sort of like it's a part of the DNA of the country it comes from, and I always find, you know, it's not like learning English or French or Italian or something like that, where you're just learning the language. I find it, you sort of have to approach it as you're engaging in a relationship of sorts, and you're going to have your ups and downs, and you have to sort of enter that knowing that you're sort of like a companion in a way, and it'll help you through some tough times. And I'm really fortunate to be from a Gumbaynggirr country which has a really strong language and culture revitalisation ecosystem that happens. But you know, I find when I come to events like this and I'm meeting people from different countries and I know some words from different places, just because I hear people use their language, I can pinpoint them to round about the area they come from, and I think it's so powerful that the use of language can provide that for someone.
Yeah, I completely agree. As Aunt mentioned, when we speak about our country, our language isn't separated, it's really into one. For me, it's important that, you know, we have them together, especially for, you know, the shores of Botany Bay, where Cook had his first encounter, and that being our language, that was probably the most first and impacted language. Of course, that shared history between the British settlement and our people. It really, I guess, takes a big strive for us to really accept, but for us it's about that legacy and you know, really, I guess, regenerating that information and how important it is, because I guess it's one of them language things is part of your cultural identity. We're all obligated to continue that, and for the same is, you know, we take that responsibility to pass that through our younger people, our younger community members, family members, and allow that to really recycle and you know, give them a bit of cultural connection and identity to, you know, how they are connected to their country, whether it's the waterways, skyways, or you know, the air. So and the land, of course. So yeah, for us, it's, and for me and myself, it's so important that we're not separating it, because it all goes together.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how you said, back to your point, how you said you can know where someone's from just by, you know, speak to someone from out west, they say Yama, and you know, you can just, it's crazy. It's more or less like, where's your mob, who's your mob, where you from, you know, like, it is crazy how we can speak in that way and know where someone's from. And I love your point, Anne, about not having one without the other, practicing culture, but also practicing language on the other side and making it feel, I suppose, they go entwined, right? They go together.
They do, yeah.
How do you think language impacts our relationships with family and kin?
Sometimes it can bring up barriers because some of your mob don't want to learn language or they're just not interested. But in all of my experiences, it's made my relationships with my aunties stronger, teaching them their language that they heard their father and mother speak, but they didn't, you know, they weren't allowed to speak it. So just having that connection with my elders as well, it's just, yeah, it's just a powerful thing. Yeah.
I like how you say powerful, because when you get to fluent Aboriginal people speaking, it is a powerful thing to hear. So I like the word powerful when you hear.
I found just with our community classes, and the difficulty with Anaiwan is that we're basing our knowledge purely on archival materials at the moment. We don't have anything other than that to go by. So with what we've got, we've been able to run community classes, and so there's a good cross-section of people. There's males, there's females, there's young and there's old. And it's just beautiful to watch those, the interactions, and then hearing the stories of kids going home and teaching their grandparents those new words that they've learned. And it's like I said, language gives you that sense of belonging and it connects you, and I just think we've gone full circle. It's something that is a sign of resilience and truth-telling when we're able to sit around and bring it back to life, and that, I believe, empowers individuals, families and community, and that's just something that's that was dormant for so long. It was punishable, and but like I said, it's a sign of true resilience that we're able to, even if it's just one word at a time, we're just bringing it back to life, and that's just an extraordinary thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I think it's always important, that revitalisation, right? How do you think that, you know, our young people feel when they start to, you know, learn language at a real young age, like it's 3, 4? Because I know that, you know, when you teach our young fellas language, you see the joy in their face. You see, you know, you have a bit of fun with it, and you just see the joy in their face from, you know, just by learning a new language, right? So how do you think our young people feel when they are in those lessons, or just learning, you know, little basic words here and there?
I think they'd feel proud. Like we deal with, we teach young kids from school at where I am, and they're just so happy when they learn a new word. And it's like they just go around, everyone saying those words, interact with one another, and they do go home and speak to their grandparents and parents about language, what they've learned at school, and you know, they're very happy to be going into language classes because they know that's theirs. You know, that's their part of their culture, and they're learning their culture through language.
My community, you know, we lost our first speaker of Gumbaynggirr in 2019, so we were fortunate to have someone who has the capacity to use language like that, but it was quite an anomaly. Just because of how the generations worked up in my family, for having so many kids and that, my old people were, you know, in their 80s and 90s, probably 10 years ago, which is probably 10 years before the Gumbaynggirr Freedom School started in Coffs Harbour, which is the first bilingual education school in the state of New South Wales. It focuses on an Indigenous language, and my old people, before they passed away, they said, you know, the people I grew up with, all that language and all that, we're not going to get that back, and they were really saddened by that, by what they felt was their reality, and they passed away before they could see what the Freedom School is doing for the kids. And a lot of them, it's a complex situation to be giving that much language to students, because they still have their regular schooling they have to focus on, but a lot of them, their well-being looks like it's really good for their well-being. They're learning a lot of language and it's doing really good for their identity, and it seems like the right decision to do, because we want our kids to have language, but to tie it up with education so heavily, it's just dawned on us to have to tread lightly and carefully and slowly, I think, in order to get it right. You don't want to treat kids like experiments to see what happens when you give language so much to kids when they're still surrounded by an English world. So it's my hope one day that our mob will just collectively around Australia will have the autonomy and the tools to outline their own goals and pursue those goals and what they look like for each mob, because I can see the benefits, but also, you know, it's not all good. There's a lot of sadness and history around that, which I've come to realise you just have to be very mindful when you progress through the business of language revitalisation?
The school you speak of, I went up to Coffs Harbour a couple of months ago and went and visited that school, and just the joy in the kids' faces that, you know, they were fluent in their language, they were singing all songs and, you know, interacting with teachers, and it's a really good thing to see, you know what I mean? So hopefully, you know, that's the end goal. Hopefully there's more, you know, bilingual schools throughout, you know, New South Wales and across Australia. So hopefully that's where we can get to. If these, you know, weeks continue over the next few years, hopefully, you know, that's the end goal. So
With the schools teaching the kids language, at least they're being exposed to language, like, because some kids, that's the only way that they can be exposed to it is through the school system. Some communities don't have, you know, community language programs as such. So schools are a really important way for the kids to actually be exposed to the language, you know, and it's important, I reckon, that they, you know, be given the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's where it sort of starts, is that, you know, if we can add that to the curricula for our kids, I think that goes a long way in, you know, having more fluent kids and more fluent Aboriginal languages, you know, being spoken across all of Australia. So I think that's a great point.
I think we all sit here and speak about how important education is, especially for the kids. And I think the access for them in particular is one of the main things that they need to, you know, take away with it. We speak about it, and we probably sit in a room that you speak to someone that's learnt language in their lived experience and have learnt from their grandparents or, you know, their aunties, uncles. But the main thing for us is that we want to teach them young, because by the time that gets to that whole system of understanding that their great-grandparents or their great, you know, whoever, great uncles and their generations above them never had access to that, or they never actually got the opportunity to speak to each other around it. And that's that family kin, as you mentioned previously. You know, I speak to my grandparents, and a lot of them, it's, I won't say in a whole lot of trauma, but it's also something that our old people never really had an opportunity to speak about or to do. As I said, I don't lead a lot of the language in schools specifically, but I do a lot of song and dance, which creates and allows them to, you know, continue their cultural practices and also showcase their practices through song and dance to allow them to enhance that. As I think access is one of the main things that we'll always lack as, not just as a community, but as a country. We always want to make sure we have access to, you know, resources, cultural resources, and everything else that can really bring the best out of them.
Yeah.
So important.
And if I'm to add anything, I'd go back to, like, you know, Indigenous people from around the world. Homeschooling was how we taught. Yeah. And school, the education system isn't always the best place to do it. I understand that it's a great place to expose them, and that's the way that it's been. The kids have gone home and spoken to their families about it. But I think at some point we need to go back to the way that we did that, and that was homeschooling. So however we learn that, and we're able to take that back and teach that at home, and realising too that it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of scenario. It's like someone might learn better through song and dance with their language. It could be with weaving, that, you know, that's how they're teaching language. Cooking, whatever. There's just all these different aspects to how we can empower ourselves through language. And I think homeschooling is sort of like the way that it should be done, because then families and communities are more in control of what that is, and we're not being tied to a system that never really did fit us in the first place. On Anaiwan country, we're really fortunate. We managed to get, I think it's 600 hectares of land, and it's such a beautiful space to go out and learn on country. And it's like when you get there, it's you can hear them whispering, "Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
You know, we're ready to teach you." It gets emotional for me, but yeah, it's beautiful.
Jackie, what do you think?
I teach a lot of kids at schools and preschool kids, and I try and not be in a classroom as much as I can. If I can take the kids outside and they can name everything that they see, smell and hear, that's a tick for me at the end of the day. That makes me proud that they're able to go out anywhere and point out things and name things. And I always say to them, once you know the name, look, listen and learn, because country's going to teach you something else as well.
I'd say, you know, considering we only have so much time in our lives to do things, I haven't really, I don't really have the time to connect with all of the countries where I'm from. It's especially because the South Coast and where I live is so far apart, but we do have some language there within my family, and they're obviously doing a great job revitalising language down there. And hearing the language, the Dharawal language down Yuin country, I instantly think of country, like down that way, and you know how important our practices are down there, like diving and all of that. It's just, language is an automatic doorway for me to just think and embed myself in country, if not physically, then at least mentally and spiritually. And you know, I think that's one of the biggest differences between Indigenous languages and world languages that you can learn. Like, learning our Indigenous languages just places us so well, and it's one of the most effective ways to connect to a place, whether it's your own country or to embed yourself in a new community. You know, language is a good vehicle to find out what that relationship is for you. And I think seeing, just in my PhD studies, I've been doing stuff like this, and I've been talking to elders on that platform, and one of them I just transcribed the other day. You know, the elder said, you know, if I spoke fluent Gumbaynggirr, I could live for another 20 or 30 years. And like, that was so powerful, almost made me cry, like trying to process that. Just don't think there's, in my mind, a more effective way to connect to somewhere than to learn language.
And just the revitalisation of the language and how we use it, like people naming their children, you know, with words, even if it's their dog or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I've just recently become a grandmother, and her name's Rain, but straight away Yuwaalaraay came to my head because that's the Anaiwan word. So that will probably be my nickname for it, but it's the way that we use it and share that, I believe.
I think that's how kids can also, you know, teach other non-Aboriginal people. You know, I've got a niece that's named Jalanji, which means rainbow, right? So, you know, it's a unique name, but when people ask what that means, you know, she's then teaching non-Aboriginal people at her school, or, you know, other Aboriginal people from different, you know, communities across wherever everyone's from. Unfortunately, you know, our people have got so much beautiful different dialects and different languages. We can't just learn one, we have to learn, how many is there? Over 250. So I think that's a really important you know, point you bring up, is that, you know, trying to name our kids after different things in you know, names or whatever, and I think that's really beautiful.
Well, I come from Newcastle, which is an area of mobs from everywhere. And when I started learning the Awabakal language, it was a way for me to connect to that land. Yes, I was born there, but when I think language, I think of my grandmother's country, I think of my grandfather's country, I think of those mountains and those ranges, you know. I don't think of where I was born and where I've lived my whole life. But when you start learning the language and the culture of that land, it connects you to the Dharawal, the country. So the more you learn, the more you are connecting, the more you learn about that country and its environment, and the more connected you become, as far as, you know, I see it. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with how important it is being active in your community, especially in the environment itself. I think we look at, you know, our upbringings, all our upbringings was be outdoors, be in the environment, whether it's with the footy, whether it's at the beach, whether it's, you know, spending time with your grandparents, whatever it is. I think when you're outside in that environment and being active and speaking about, you know, the beach in your language, or, you know, we say wajit, but like all these different words itself, it really enhances how important your connection is to another community and also your community. I think when we speak about environments and we also speak about communities connection, as said, we've said it previously, but it all goes together as one. I think when we can't really divide that, because if we divide that, it doesn't work without that. Our language and our culture and our connection to our country is one, and that's what we identify as Aboriginal people or Indigenous people, First Nations people, is that when we identify and why we identify who we are is not just because of how we've been taught, but it's something that our old people has done from a long time. I think when we speak about and of course have, you know, that strong legacy from our old people, but for us it's really just taking that torch and that light and really trying to reignite and show that resilience, as you mentioned. I think that word highlights everything in our country and our culture. I think resilience is something that, you know, our old people has always really been underestimated for. Not just our traditional methods, but also our traditional knowledge, and that goes alongside our connection to our country, because without that, everything's just, you know, a European way or a different method, which I don't really agree with. But I think for us, if we can get, you know, as much concentration from our kids, whether they're boys, girls, toddlers, adults, I think spending time on country with our words, with our language, with our connection to our country really strengthens everything from the get-go.
Why do you guys think it's important to have a week to celebrate languages in Australia?
It's a time to acknowledge that what was lost, we're reviving word by word, and it's giving a voice to those who weren't allowed to speak it. And it's us showing our resilience that we're now doing that, and that all those racist white policies, you know, colonisation might have been damaging and very strong, but at the end of the day we were stronger. And so, you know, it's a fight that's been worth fighting.
I think we all use that word resilience, right? You can't explain our people without using that word, so it's a very powerful word, and we'll continue using that.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to get together and network as well, and speak about their languages and you know, what they're doing in their communities. You know, just letting other people know what they're doing and how they're doing it, so that can sort of lead to other people maybe doing the same thing and bringing some more language and culture into their communities. And for me, language is very important. It always has been since my kids were at school. First brought home a Gumbaynggirr, Yuwaalaraay, Yuwaalaraay dictionary, and they were starting to learn language back in 1990, my older ones. And, you know, I think just me helping them with their language, and then I fell in love with it myself. And then I just went from there and started, you know, learning it. Went to TAFE and done some courses, and now I'm there teaching these other kids that, you know, are just coming up now, and adults. I do online courses, and I think it's really important that, you know, like, everybody knows about everyone else what they're doing, so that if they need to, they can speak to them about it. Just network and, you know, help one another out with language.
Yeah, I think that's an important one, is that if someone's not having that, you know, that particular idea in their country, it's important that we, you know, all band together and help each other out in different communities, and that, not to try and safeguard or try and hold it all in and be selfish, because we know our old people were never selfish, right? We were always sharing everything in our culture. So
I think it's about, you know, visibility in a sense of just recognition as well. Like, a lot of our language practitioners doing the work on the ground, it can feel like they're not being seen for how much time and effort they're putting in, and just how much sacrifice that they have to do as far as they don't get paid equivalent to the work they're putting in. Even if they do it for a full-time job, they're often teaching community classes, or they're trying to think of new ideas on the weekends just when they could be doing something else. And there's a lot of sweat, tears that go into it. And it can be an emotional roller coaster. Like, you're talking to elders who have this particular relationship to it, where there could be a lot of sadness around it, where in Gumbaynggirr country and down the south coast, from my grandmother, you know, their elders could speak a language but not around them, so they knew it was happening but they couldn't be a part of that. So this whole idea of trying to relearn it, and the younger generations are often more proficient, it's a complex dynamic, and they're not only learning the language but they're also contributing with their knowledge that they don't really think it's valuable until the young ones say, like, that's incredible. Like, we had no idea that was a thing, we had no idea that existed, and it's only because you just told us randomly and we got the chance to recognise just how much knowledge about language and culture our elders have. And I think there just needs to be more of giving people their flowers while they're around. And I think I would go a long way. Like that same uncle who said he could live for 30 years if he was fluent in language, you know, he openly just said, you know, I've seen all of you guys start from zero and you've accomplished so much, and you can achieve the world if you just put your minds to it. And I'm so proud of how far you have all gone, and just hearing it, it does so much. And on the other end, just making sure that our elders know how much they actually mean to us, and how far it goes when we hear stuff like that. Our elders, you know, should enjoy retirement, but they don't have to do that much in order to lift our spirits and keep being the generation that pushes us forward and guides us, because they know so much.
That's such a beautiful story. I just like, and I've never heard it put that way before, that, you know, that language promotes longevity. It's like, I've never heard it put in that perspective before, and I just think that's something just beautiful. And to be able to share that, because language is a real sense of who feels it, knows it. It's a real emotional sort of thing. And I mean, I know that when I first started, I really balked at it. I just thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. And I don't think there's anyone like within my space that, in my area, that can claim to be an expert on it, because it was asleep for so long. And just being a part of the revitalisation, and just hearing a story like that, and knowing the impact that that's had on somebody that can speak it, it's a great story, and it's one that should be shared.
And that's why we should have a week like Language Week, so we can share our stories, we can recognise the people that have gone before us and done the hard work. And just like this week, No Not Week, our Language Week is a chance for us to show this country, let them hear our voices that have gone to sleep, that are now reawakening. Let them know that our voices are still here. Our language is still here.
Perfect theme for the Language Week, isn't it?
Yes.
Our voices fly. How do you think our language heals us in our communities?
I'll refer back to that story. You know, if giving somebody 30 more years to their life, because language can give that strength to them to want to go on, then, you know, it's obviously there's a purpose behind knowing language and being able to speak it and share it.
I think healing's a good one. Healing our traumas are a really good one, because, you know, all our old people were forbidden to speak our language, and if they did, you know, they were punished.
Speaking about my uncle, who's just started to learn language, He's a week younger than me, but he's my uncle, and he's just started learning language, and he's doing it so he can speak to his grannies, grandkids. But in saying that, with him and the grandkids speaking, that's a part of their healing in their community where they come from, because they couldn't learn it before, but now they can because their grandfather is speaking to them in that way. So I find that sort of like a form of healing the community as a whole, because those little ones will go and talk to someone else and teach them,
That knock-on effect, that flow-on
some
effect.
lingo as well.
Yeah, I think it's important. Hey, I use my great-grandmother as an example. She would basically end up having, I guess, dementia and stuff. So a lot of the focus itself, she would, I guess, fall asleep, but she would sleep talk, and when she would sleep talk, she would speak language. And why she would speak language, her kids never actually knew that she could speak language, because that was that generational information and that, I guess, that connection to understanding that mum could speak language, and it was fluent. I'd speak fluent. Two different languages. Her father being from Dhanggati, and then her speaking Dharawal as well. So a lot of that itself was really something that, I guess, allowed her kids as well to really understand that healing process of being dementia, of not remembering the closest thing to it, but also remembering her upbringing of speaking language, because, as said, it's so hard teaching language or learning language, being an adult or being, uprising. But when you're actually at that young age where you can learn it and really align that on how much and how important it is healing, I think that was one of the big demonstrations and examples that was really important for us to highlight how important our country and our connection with language as well.
I got a similar situation. My great-grandfather was probably the example in our family of the one who produced those historical recordings that we're thankful to have, and he was a Dhanggati man, and he was, I guess, fair. He was, I guess you could call white passing, but he went through 3 initiation stages and he spoke a few different languages. But we had these tapes, and it was sort of just a couple of people who even knew about him, and I played them for my uncle, who was his grandson, and he started crying because he's like, not only did I not know he knew language, I didn't know he was Indigenous. Like, the fact that he didn't share any language or culture with his grandkids or anything like that, just because it was in that time where the welfare and things were just taking out children, and there's a lot of stuff around that. But now those same tapes, my generation are using my great-grandfather's tapes as a way of learning of a lot about our stories and about our language, and about sort of what our initiation stuff was sort of like, because we don't have that anymore. And it's interesting, but my uncle and I were talking, just the fact that one generation who actually knew him in person, he just did so well at not only masking the fact that he knew all this, but masking the fact that he was Indigenous at all. And then my generation is using it as a platform to try and not only learn from him, but realise that the legacy can't stop with him, and we have to continuously share what we know in this space in order just to do good by him and the rest of our families. And I think that's a really important part of languages, because of there's so much emotion and history around it that's negative and positive, can heal from so many different angles. People who have such a tumultuous family history of language and not being able to use it, now they're learning it and pushing it forward. And like in the span of 4 generations, he could go from my grandparents didn't speak to me, and then now my children are part of a revitalisation process, and can swing back around so fast and not only heal the people who are doing it, but also heal the people who have proximity to those people who are doing the work. Just being around it is having such a good impact.
because it's a constant fight. I think of it in relation to my grandfather on, as an Anaiwan man, had said, we're living in a white man's world now, so, you know, all that stuff, just don't worry about it. And so that's how his children grew up, without knowing anything about Anaiwan, other than a few stories that might have popped up. But language wasn't a part of it. Practicing culture wasn't necessarily seen. But the fight continues because, you know, we're fighting for what was taken away from them. They had to be submissive. It was the only way they could survive. But here we are now, like, putting the fight up, like, you know, it's not a loss, it's a legacy. And that's how I view the revitalisation of language for me.
Yeah, what are ways some language groups can collaborate?
Oh, I've got one here. I've found in our community that we've got a lot of children that are in out-of-home care. They're off-country, and it makes it difficult working in a space that is primarily a revitalisation of Anaiwan language, and not overstepping any marks. I mean, like, I could say, well, yeah, I'm Gumbaynggirr, so it's okay, it's cool for me to teach those kids Gumbaynggirr language. And I feel a sense of comfortability with that, but not entirely, because it's off country, and it's like developing some sort of process and protocol where we're able to collaborate, so that, you know, we've got this network where we've got someone that might be from Awabakal that's now living on Anaiwan country. How do we then help them to learn their language? The same like with Gumbaynggirr, or, sorry, I've forgotten yours.
Yuwaalaraay. Yuwaalaraay.
Yeah, so that to me is an important part of how we can collaborate to ensure that those children that are now seen as the new stolen generation, that are either in out-of-home care or they're incarcerated, how do we ensure that they're not missing out? Because to me we should live by that philosophy of, you know, no one's left behind. And I think that's vital, otherwise we're going to be having the same sort of situation. And if we can control that in a space where we've got the experts or the knowledge to be able to pass that on, then how do we do that? And I think that coming up with the network of people that can offer that to them.
Yeah, I was just about to say more or less the same thing. I've been working with language for 15 years, and it's only in the last 2 years where we've been having these language centre network meetings and just gatherings together that you realise that help is there, and you won't get shut down just because you're not that language group. And we can help each other. If we don't have any living speakers, we can go to our neighbouring languages and listen to their recordings and get their help with that. If we don't have a word, we can share a word. There's many ways our groups can get together, and I just think in the last 2 years we've been very successful at that, especially in New South Wales. So yeah.
One of them, I think, for us is, you know, working primarily with Gumbaynggirr, we have people like Uncle Ray, Dhanggati, you know, from our neighbour to the south, and he's demonstrated us that he's very passionate about working as a partnership across nations, and because Gumbaynggirr and Dhanggati have compatible marriage systems, we're pretty much blended in a lot of ways, and just being able to come to gatherings like this and see what happens when neighbouring knowledge holders, like say Uncle Gary Williams, who's fairly prominent, and Uncle Ray, they just get in the same spaces, and you see how much they're sharing from their own communities and how much is compatible or similarities between the two. And a lot of the stuff that they do different. When we see that, we see, you know, we can't just have these moments at the ALT gatherings or conferences and things like that. We need to, what we call goalberries, or gatherings of different people coming together and talking really intentionally about how we can set short-term and long-term goals within our communities, but also use not only the overlapping knowledge that we have, but the differences that we have to maybe learn from that and lift each other up. And I know it's the same up on northern Gumbaynggirr country with the Yuin and Bundjalung mob, like there's strong connections there too. And it's just that same thing of getting together and figuring out, you know, how do we make processes from the ground up that emerge from our own worldviews, but we can also figure out a way to integrate the knowledge and expertise of our neighbours to create more efficient or effective language teaching stuff. Like Gumbaynggirr mob have been doing this thing called accelerated second language acquisition, which is an image orientated way of teaching language. And you know, you can wing it obviously because it's very intuitive how to teach with images, but there is a process around that, and that's just an example of, you know, if we went to Dhanggati country or Dharawal or Anaiwan, then maybe we just do some workshops around that, or vice versa. If the people up on the mountain are doing some stuff that we don't know about, then they share that with us, because I think it's holding hands and pushing each other forward so that we have a more collective but detailed and efficient process to learn, because we only have so much time during the week. So how do we push ourselves forward?
I think for those that are teaching language at the table, what are the most important things to consider?
For me, I think it's make sure that you're teaching it right. You know, not skimming over things. Like language, you know, the pronunciation of a language is, you know, it's all by itself. So you go to another, you know, person's country and they may have the same word, but it will mean something else.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to be careful about pronunciations of words, and not so much spelling, because spelling, we didn't have that written thing, you know, it was more
Oral language.
so it's a different way of saying the words. So that's a really important part, I think, of teaching language. And I've been teaching for quite a while, and I've taught young kids at school, and then I've taught at TAFE, and also I do online teaching as well. So it's about making sure, like I said, you have it right. You know, not teaching them something that's not right, because you do a disservice to them old people, you know, that kept that language going.
From an Anaiwan point of view, because we're in the very early stages, and like I said earlier, we're relying on archival material. We don't have access to a lot of information, and so developing that into a resource to be able to teach it in the way that it should be taught is tiresome and cumbersome, in the sense that, like, we've got very little to work with. So I guess knowing that neighbouring nations, we share similar words, and just knowing what that process and protocol is in confirming, having that exchange with those nations, because we're not wanting to cross the line there of, like, well, no, that's our word, you can't have that. And this is all new to us, so it's got its trials and tribulations for us, but, you know, the end goal is that, you know, we're going to get somewhere, and we've started. But just being able to link up, and this is where all this collaboration and stuff would be such an advantage for us, that because we've pretty much got our L's on. You know, we're still learning.
It's important for us to think, you know, as we talk about focusing on the younger ones and allowing them to speak language. We talk about that being oral. That was how we all through that oral component. As said, for me, my teachings and I heavily rely on the song and dance in particular, because I feel like that's something that our younger community members pick up on. I feel like they understand the reasons why we dance the way we do, why we paint up the way we paint up, why we wear what we wear, and allow that from the get-go. Allow them and make them understand that, and that connects them also through different components, especially dreaming stories or things that relate to that area where we're dancing, why we're dancing it, why we're doing what we're doing. The spoken component of it, should say, it's just as important, because for us we make sure that all our language practitioners or tutors or anyone that really focuses on teaching and delivering language, that they belong to our community, they have an understanding of why they are delivering that. They understand the importance of why they're delivering the language to the kids, and allowing the kids to be involved, because they understand how important it is. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. So using it from the start and the get-go for our younger ones can really strengthen, and I think that's going to be one of the main things for us, not just moving further south, moving further west, as a nation or as a community. I think having them opportunities to present and display our words, our language in one way, shape or form, allows other communities and neighbouring tribes to really get on board and be able to deliver that as well.
So, why did everyone get involved in the language space, and more importantly, why do you stay active in this space? I'll start with you, Aunt.
For me, I felt that it was important to put the language out there, for people to learn and then to keep it going. I didn't think I would be doing it for this long, but and I love language, I love culture, and they go together. So it's just something that's keeping me going, and I just want as many people as possible to learn, so that we can keep it going without scrimping and scrounging and saying whether we can have a teacher for this or a teacher for that, It's important that we get people there on the floor and say, come and learn so you can teach too, keep it going. Sometimes it seems like it's just left up to one or two people. So it's really, really important that we try and get more people involved and interested, because if we don't have the people there that want to learn, it's not going to keep going.
Yeah.
So that's just my point of view, and I think it's very important to try and get, especially the younger ones, involved in language.
What woke up my language journey, I worked in childcare for 10 years before language, and we had, it was the Aboriginal childcare, and we had kids from out west coming in, and they'd run in the door and yama naninya, and it just awoke something in me. Why can't we be talking like that every day? And why do these little kids come in and they talk a language from another country? Like, what can we do here? And that's what awoke my journey, and the need and the want for it. And I'm sort of, the Awabakal language is in the same kind of line as Anaiwan. We're reawakening it. We're going off written documents. We don't have living speakers. And I think the reason I'm still here, and the reason I'll probably still be here in another 20 years, is because until that's awoken and spoken by enough and there's community lessons, I'm not going anywhere.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
For me, I done language classes in 2005, so I was about 10. Then I'd done it again when I finished high school in 2014, and it was very much the opposite of what you guys have been talking about. It was grammar orientated, written on the board, and you just grew yourself going through the Gumbaynggirr alphabet, and you get pulled up for all the things you pronounce wrong, and it was very dry. But I'm thankful for that, because I've been able to navigate the resources a little bit easier now, and it's made that step a little bit easier to deal with, and it frees up some mental space on the other side of it. And you know, I'd done my bachelor around Indigenous knowledge, and then I was done my honours, and it got to a point where I was starting to think about a PhD. And my main area is Indigenous metaphysics, which is the academic world of trying to understand how Aboriginal people see the world around us in an academic sense. And my supervisor said, well, you know, you have a relationship with language, why don't you look at language in that picture and see what role language plays in your country? And that's why I said at the start, I'm not a language practitioner, I don't teach it, but I'm just in proximity to those who do all the hard work. And I am thankful enough to get to be around to document it and try to figure out how to ask questions using that academic space. And because I'm in that position, I'm seeing all angles. I'm seeing people who were, you know, 3 to 4, who are being raised by people who can't use Gumbaynggirr as an everyday language. They don't need to use English if they don't want to, so the kids are being raised in that. And then on the end of the spectrum, there's just a range of elders who have worked in language revitalisation for a long time, or they've just started learning language recently because they feel like it's a really good way to connect with our community and just with the stuff that's going on, and it keeps them in the loop so they're not just out there by themselves. And all of those different perspectives just create this huge library of knowledge about language and about culture. And because everything's so holistic and relational for us, you know, just being involved in that and listening and being able to exchange knowledge and stories about things long past, traditional stories, stuff about language events, it's just a really good space to be in. And from all the people I've spoken to who work in language, once they start, they don't get out of it, because it's just, there's so much more beyond the idea of just working with language. You're also just a part of this community that holds each other together. And when I get the opportunity to travel to conferences and things, hearing about how much my other communities, like down Yuin country and Dhanggati country and Birrappa country, how much they've progressed and all the work that they're doing, it's just, there's definitely some more heart-filling moments than there are ones of sadness. And that's continuing to shift in that direction, because a lot of the elders who had complex relationships with language because of that history are starting to feel good about it, because they're figuring out what their goals are in their mind for language, and it's healing them. And that's just another point of fulfillment on my end. And being able to conduct research in this space, it's unbelievable. And even though, like, I find myself behind a computer desk most days doing typing, it's the stuff when I get out and I'm talking to community and talking to kids who have no idea how special what they're involved in is, especially at that freedom school. Like, there's kids there who are absolutely incredible with the language, and the idea of, you know, we have all these people who have been involved in language revitalisation being our top speakers, and then it's just a bunch of like 9 and 10-year-olds, like, and all of us are in the middle of them. It's just so rewarding. And I don't think anyone who gets outside, who starts with language, ever leaves it, because there's that similar feeling in every nation.
It's like it becomes a part of you. You know, you just can't let it go. It's there and it's staying there.
If we all could sit here and speak just in our language, things would be completely different. We look back, you know, hundreds of years now, and we just get things that are not even, I guess, generations, I should say, generational to above us. You know, some of that itself is access for using our own language, our traditional language. Traditional being something that we spoke since time began, something that's still belongs to us, something that we've want to still continue, but unfortunately it comes down to access. And I think that's what we are you know, I guess highlighting is we need access for community to be able to continue that, and I think that's why we're here as well, is that because we understand all our duties of care and our obligation to strengthen our younger community members or any family and heal them through that.
I guess my journey started way back with my first job, and I bought a video camera, and it was primarily to go to watch Anaiwan play football and videotape the games. But I had some uncles, some of them were initiated, but they were willing to teach me language, so I thought, oh, I'll put the camera to good use, and I recorded them. That was mainly influenced through Gumbaynggirr and Bundjalung language, which was my father's mob. But once they went, that was something that I'd lost, along with the videotapes. But I guess that passion to learn was always there. And if you were to look up Anaiwan language, and I've said this before, Wikipedia tells you that it's non-existent. It doesn't. It's not alive at all. But you know, we've proven that wrong. And I guess it's stubbornness combined with resilience for me. It's like, you know, you take your knee off the neck sort of thing. I'm here to speak, and I'm speaking for my ancestors, and I'm speaking for my grandchildren. So that's why it's important to me to, and that's, you know, that's all part of my journey. Like I said, I'm a learner. Whether I'll get to be an expert, a fluent speaker in my lifetime, I don't know. But I certainly want to be able to leave that legacy behind for those that are coming up.
Just touching on that, I've seen a video at the ALT conference in the Hunter Valley, and it was an AI video of Anaiwan and Dharawal, like there was a speaker from each community. You know, some magic was done on that, and they used, there was like a fluent conversation between the two around a campfire.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God. If it was a dingo bear instead of a golden retriever in the video, I would start crying or something. It's just like, oh my God, this is so surreal.
Thank you all for sharing your journey. We've got one final question. What are your hopes for the future of our languages?
Like I just spoke about, you know, wanting as many people as possible to come and learn so that it can be carried on. And that's, to me, is the most important thing regarding our languages, because we need people to carry it on, you know, not to go by the wayside and lose it again. It's not that it was lost, it's like still there, but we don't want to get into that situation again. We just want to keep it going. That's my passion about language. I just don't want to see it gone again.
Mainly on the same notes, just let's let it continue. I hope to see in the next few years that the younger generations start to come through more and replace us ones that are getting, you know, been here for too long. The younger ones come through and they keep coming through, and what we're here doing today will be represented in 20 years by those young ones as well. So just to continue, everyone continues their work, and we just stick together and don't give up.
I would say each language community's goals, it's a contextualised process. It has to come from, you know, the local history and the worldviews and aspirations of the community. So I hope we can eventually get to a point where every community has the tools and the autonomy to be able to identify what they want for themselves, both short-term and long-term, and they have all the resources and support from not only their neighbours, but one day the government to be able to carve out what that looks like in a real-time process and continue smashing their own goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think of it in terms of the theme, which is, what is it, voices fly?
Let us fly, Let our voices fly.
Yeah, and I think that's the essence of it all, is that, you know, we've given it the wings. We've just got to make sure there's people there to keep it, you know, up there and alive, and you know, we're giving it life. We just need to make sure that we're living it and our future generations are able to live it. And that's just, like I said earlier, naming our children with our tribal names or whatever. But I guess the proof that we've done our job is, I'd love to be able to walk into a room back home and everyone's just speaking Anaiwan. There's not a drop of English at all. And that's just a dream, I guess, for every nation, that you know, we can go wherever and it's understood.
For my vision, looking down the crystal ball itself, I just want to have, allow all my family and community, and for, I'm sure other communities want the same, but to just allow have access and resources and broken down to make it a bit easier for them to understand. Some may be the academic side of things, some may be out in the environment, but I want that to be able to be reciprocated on both ends so they can actually learn, so they're not, you know, finding it difficult in one way, shape or form. And as Aunt mentioned, I really would love to see that our community greeting and also just speaking in our language that our old people spoke throughout our country, and especially considering that we had so much error and protectionism and control over what we said, what we done, as Cody, you mentioned. I think it's just as important, as I said earlier, about obligations, but allowing them, their voices to, you know, to fly, as we should say. And for us, I think it's all going to, you know, start with us, and I think that's the best thing moving forward.
Well, that's a wrap from us. From the bottom of my heart, just want to say thanks to all the aunties and brothers that are sitting on this table for sharing their journey and their opinions and ideas on what we should do in the future. I play in front of 30 or 40,000 people each and every week, and this was the most daunting task ever. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.